That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. As indicated, my name is Tebo Morajane. I've been given this particular honor by the chairperson and the committee that I should be guiding this particular process. This is the most important event in the life of us as librarians in this particular country, whereby we are celebrating ourselves as librarians. And what is nice about this particular celebration is that it gives us an opportunity to take stock of our services that we are providing at different platforms, whether it's academic, public, special, or school libraries. This is a platform whereby we reflect as librarians as to what is it that we are doing for these communities, for these citizens of our country. Are we making an impact? Are we celebrated by our clients, or are our clients are saying, oh, who is one of those services? Now, I'm glad that LIASA came to this position that they came with this particular concept of Librarians Day. Now, I will not waste a lot of your time. My work is to facilitate this particular program for the day. So, ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome in this particular session. As I shall be driving it through the guidance of the chairperson of this particular session. So, colleagues, try to make sure that you assist the colleagues who are struggling to get their links. So, you know, sometimes when the message comes back, it can be diverted to another platforms within your screen. I mean, within your settings. It could be in your adverts, it could be in your publications, it could be in your spam. So now try to make sure that you check that particular link there. So we are at 10:13 according to the chronometer that I'm using this side. The time is 10:13. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your platform. Let's enjoy ourselves without any waste of time. I will quickly step aside and allow my brother Ugo Okoli to do the honors of addressing item number 1, which is an opening and welcome. Over to you, Mr. IT, Mr. Ugo Okoli. I don't know whether you want to share the screen, Mr. Okoli.
No, I don't have a screen to share, but I would just like to thank you for the opportunity and welcome everybody on board. And I really appreciate for you guys. Thank you for making out your time, and KG and the national team for giving us this time slot for us to actually showcase what we have for the library month. And I would like to welcome you all. And as Brother Tabuko has said it all. He has talked about the faces of librarianship in the 21st century. I mean, he took all the words out of my mouth. So to that beat, I would actually say welcome, and I open the floor for the webinar to begin. So I'll be handing over to the presentation of the guests. Ms. Jeanette can take over from here. Thank you very much.
Okay, sorry, my brother. Sorry for taking the weight out of your head. Those things happen.
No. Yeah, not a problem. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, I'm not sure because you want to make sure that people are catered for minimal time within this particular platform, so that they can be able to go back to their platforms. I wanted to check, Jeanette, are you ready? If you are ready, you can open. I've forgotten to introduce myself also. Debo. Jeanette, are you ready?
Good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
My name is Jeanette. I'm here to introduce our guest speaker for the day. Our guest speaker is none other than Ms. Adriansen. Ms. Adriansen is a special collection librarian. She's got more than 30 years experience in both public libraries, corporate information technology, consulting, and academic sectors. Her area of expertise are archiving, digitization, metadata, and databases. Her education started when she have a bachelor degrees from University of France Afrikaanse. And special skills are metadata system knowledge, supervision computer literacy, problem solving, meticulous details and orientated, leadership ability, organizational and decision-making skills, as well as communication skills. Our next, our speaker is going to guide us on
Jeanette, are you still connected? Jeanette, are you still connected? Who's closer to Jeanette who can check what is happening on her side? We didn't receive any notification of load shedding in Tlokwe. JB Max today, ne? Chairperson, are you still online?
There's no load shedding in Tlokwe.
Okay, thank you very much, Karen, because Jeanette is based in JB Max also. She just disappeared within the networks. So, through you, Chairperson, I think Jeanette was trying to finalize the credentials of our guest speaker today. So now basically our guest speaker is going to focus on this particular topic, Phases of Librarianship in the 21st Century. She's going to elaborate on those concepts. As you can hear in the CV, that there's a lot of experience behind the presentation that we are going to hear. Without any waste of time, let me stop sharing and allow the chairperson and our presenter to take over the screen and make a presentation. Over to you, our guest speaker. I don't know what happened to Jeanette, but it's not a plane crash. You can proceed.
Okay, good morning. My name says Martin, but I promise we haven't done a sex change on Martin. I'm just sharing his seat because we had a technical problem. I'm the one with the red hat.
Yes.
And the 30 years there, yes, there's a lot of experience, which generally also just translates as I'm old. But yes, I do know a lot. I've been around the block a couple of times, a couple of fascinating times. And I think the big thing that I want to share today is to speak to people, to say to them that, you know what, yes, the face of librarianship has changed. It has in some ways changed in ways that we couldn't even have imagined it when I studied. But in other ways, we must realize that, you know what, knowledge management is probably the most important industry that you can be a part of today. Can I just ask that my screen be shared, please? Or do I have permission to share my screen? Because I've got a PowerPoint presentation that I want to put up for us.
Yes, you can share the screen, please.
Good. Can you guys now see my PowerPoint presentation?
Not yet.
Okay. Are we there?
No.
Audrey, just make sure you're sharing the correct screen because I know Martin has 2 screens.
Oh, yeah.
So I think ideally you would want to have the document open first before you try and share.
That's correct.
So just make sure that the presentation slides are open. So once you have them open, you just scroll to the bottom where it says share screen.
Share screen.
Okay,
There
that's
you go.
that.
It's
Good.
coming.
That's better now.
Okay, now we are seeing the desktop. You just need to make sure you display the presentation. Select yes, there we are. And then you can put in
Okay.
presentation mode. And then
Are we
right
all on the
there-
same page now?
Yes, at the bottom there, can you see where there is those little icons? Is up, just up a little bit, the 3 dots on the right hand side. No,
Okay.
go back down.
The 3 dots
The 3 dots, they're just above
next to your
slide.
NW.
It's just above slide 1 of 14. Can you see that?
Yes.
Where it says slide 1 of 14, there's an icon there with 3 dots. Just click on that.
Yeah, it says more.
Sorry, I'm coming.
Then what
Sorry.
are the options that you are seeing?
Can I record?
No. I think
Enable
you need to-
annotations, hide names, hide video panel, floating
No.
meetings. No.
No, you are on. You need to look on the other screen where, yes, scroll down a bit. Scroll down.
Okay.
I think you've moved to the different screen. You need to scroll down on, yes, on that screen. Yes. Now move to the left a bit.
Yeah.
To the left.
Where
okay,
it says
move a bit.
toolbars. I'm show taskbar.
Yeah, now you can scroll down to the bottom icons below the presentation. Yes, over there to the right. Yes, that one.
Yes.
And then
Oh.
select hide presenter view.
Hide presenter view. Nou sê nou weer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait,
Yes,
wait.
and then now you can
Slideshow.
go to slideshow.
Okay, we've got a team effort going here, people. There's now, how many librarians does it take to run a presentation?
Okay, you can scroll up there where it says
You were sharing
animations
the wrong
slideshow.
screen.
Go.
Yes, up there where it says and
Okay, but the camera is sitting over here.
Okay. So now on the presenter. We'll get there. I'll quickly fix it. What was it done?
Okay.
What was your presentation?
Kagiso,
Yeah.
hello, Tabora.
okay. I wanted to check. Can you start to share, Adri?
We're just trying to fix the presentation because it went to the wrong screen.
Oh, okay. So meanwhile, they are fixing the screen.
Yeah, it's
important-
a bit different from fixing your makeup.
No, don't worry. These things happen. So, but meanwhile, they are fixing the screen.
I found it.
You find it.
Never mind now.
Are you okay now?
Right. I'll fix it. With you, know?
We'll
Okay.
get,
Okay.
yeah,
Ondersteun.
understand.
As I know, verkeerde plek is nie. It keeps on showing this
The presentation on the wrong
okay,
screen.
it's showing it on the wrong screen, but okay, let's work it past it.
Hi, good morning. Can I assist?
Mm.
No, I'm fine.
Hi, Malose.
Mhm.
Share nou maar die een.
Let's collaborate.
No, I'm fine. We're fine. Can you see
Okay.
it now? That's nice.
Yeah, who are those? You can see that screen that say who are those, and then Adri Johnson. That's the screen that you're looking for.
Okay, good.
Oh, that's the screen that you're looking for.
Now, why is it freezing? It's freezing now.
start to share again. It went back to the screen.
Yes, I know, I closed it. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes, we can see
Okay.
all the phases of librarianship in the 21st century, yes. And then is the profile of Adre.
Okay. Can we go
And
to
then we are seeing your emails.
Yeah, man.
All of them.
Well, at least Martin's been working.
The busy man, I can see.
Okay, so, and you can just, okay, good.
Can you click
Oh,
at the presentation? The presentation is not appearing. We are seeing the screen of Martin, not the presentation. Go back to the presentation and click it or open it.
The presentation is open.
But what we are seeing the desktop of Martin, no presentation.
Nog 'n keer. Can you see it now?
No, ma'am.
Why is it being so difficult today?
I think it's the MS Team fever has taken over.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, we are at the
Okay.
table of content of the presentation. Yes.
Okay, finally, good.
All right.
Let's get started. I'll talk fast so that we can stay on time. Martin is a very dear colleague of mine, and he's asked me to do this presentation specifically because I've had such a varied career. And one of the things that I wanted to bring across to people today is the different possibilities within librarianship that is available specifically for people that are looking for a change of scenery, or people that youngsters that are just starting out in the career. I think the main point of the whole exercise is to say that, you know what, don't get stuck in a rut. It is such a varied industry that really, honestly, the world is your oyster. So take charge of it and actually decide where you're going to go next. I wanted to just quickly talk about who art thou in proper Shakespeare speak. I've got, as Jeanette very, very rightly said, I've got more than 30 years experience within the information science industry. I've had a fascinating career. I started at the Johannesburg Public Library as a student. I worked full-time, I studied full-time. It was quite nightmarish at the time, but it was so worthwhile. Johannesburg Public Library in those days, in the sort of mid-80s, was a fascinating institution with incredibly high standards within the organization, and I will be forever grateful. I think Johannesburg Public Library was one of the sort of molding influences within my career, that attention to detail and attention to quality and that attention to excellence in everything we do. I spent sort of roughly about 4 years at the Johannesburg Public Library, 1 in the lending department and then 3 in the cataloging department. And after I qualified, I moved to Pricewaterhouse. I was head of information there. Pricewaterhouse, and from PricewaterhouseCoopers, I moved on to De Beers, where I got involved in IT. If you read my CV, in my curriculum vitae, I mentioned that in my first year at university, we were sitting there arguing about whether GUI in graphical user interfaces was going to be a good idea or a bad idea. That's how old I am. But the bottom line is at that point, I realized that information technology was going to become a driving factor within information management. and today, I think we've very well all realized that you cannot do information management without information technology. The two, to a certain extent, are married to each other. I chose in my 4th year to specialize on the IT side of things, specifically because the whole the database aspect of information management fascinated me. I moved from Price Waterhouse to De Beers, where I got involved with digital archiving. At De Beers, we had a situation where they used Ballenhall microfilm as an archiving medium. And the environmental protection guys in the United States, where the Ballenhall microfilm came from, walked in one morning and actually decided it was environmentally unfriendly and closed down the entire factory. So literally overnight, without any warning, De Beers ended up without an archive medium. And they recruited me to come and create a digital archive for them. We were specifically involved with De Beers, the exploration archive side of it. The information we dealt with was worth millions, if not billions of rands at the time. The security was incredibly high. In fact, we had all my information was stored in a nuclear bomb-proof bunker. But at De Beers, I wrote the databases that created their archive. At that stage, we literally couldn't find a database system that could actually do what we wanted to do. I always say that at De Beers, we integrated an NT server with a Unix server. The Unix server ran our databases with incredible search power. And in fact, De Beers still uses that system today. The NT server was cutting edge technology at that stage, and the blinking thing kept falling over in the initial phases. And I hated NT for a very long time. But the bottom line is that we did online document delivery in the early 1990s at De Beers. And at that stage, that wasn't cutting edge technology, it was bleeding edge technology. And we learned an incredible amount in a very short time. One of the things that I learned in the whole process of developing the De Beers systems was you can't archive digitally, and I'll explain that later on in one of my sessions. B, you needed to be a metadata or a cataloging expert. At De Beers, one of the reasons we wrote the databases ourselves eventually is that in your cataloging structure, in the 856 field, your mark fields, where you put your URL, we had to build a counter onto that field. Because once you've opened an image 15 times and you've closed it 15 times, you have enough damage to that digital image that you need to replace it. We therefore built a batch process into the system that overnight, the system would then go to your working archive folder and fetch a new fresh image. Now I'll elaborate on all of those details further on. After De Beers, I had a knowledge management consultancy. I worked on my own for a number of years, and I did information management consultancy, trading as creative information management solutions. And that was incredibly challenging. You learn an incredible amount in a very short time. You're typically working on contracts where you go into a client site, you set up their systems, you do the training, you hand it over, you move on to the next project. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to do something like that, keep in mind the colleagues that you work with, because you cannot do that if you don't have an excellent reputation within the industry, because you get your work from word of mouth through colleagues at other institutions. So keep that in mind. After De Beers, I spent roughly about 7 years in the pure IT industry, got involved with a company called Rubico. I did business analysis, and we wrote IT systems for large international concerns like Group 5. And we wrote the database systems for their picking yards and their financial systems, things like that. But the bottom line was, as my heart was within information management. The salaries within the IT world is astronomical. It is incredibly big. But in the process there, I also became a mother. And for about 2 years, I didn't work. And once I came back into the industry, I came back into academic libraries. And hence how I ended up where I am at the moment. Before I became a PIC last year in November, I've not been at the NWU for a long time. I must tell you, just a word of mouth for those of you guys that may be looking for jobs. Aim for the NWU. I've got the most amazing boss, and I've got the most amazing colleagues, which is why I'm sitting here. I'm in charge of special collections at the NWU. And at this point, I'm going to move on, and we're going to talk about the, as I say in Afrikaans, my hartsepunt. This is where my passion lies. Special collections and heritage preservation. I always talk about my ghosts up in Afrikaner. They're a very civilized bunch, I must admit. They don't have any chains. So no poltergeists around here. They're a fascinating crowd. But to do special collections, if you want to move into that area, a couple of words of wisdom from somebody that's standing in the field. It's one of the fields it's one of the phases of librarianship that is probably, from a technical point of view, one of the most challenging fields. If you want to move into special collections and heritage preservation, you are going to need a fair amount of science. You're going to have to understand chemicals. You're going to have to understand how light waves work when you get to digitization. So I would suggest that if you want to get into this side of world, you should have at least maths and physics at a grade 12 level. There's a huge amount of things, but on the other side of this coin, I have the best job in this building. Nobody gets anywhere near the job satisfaction that I have on a daily basis. You need to be very well conversant in history, and history across sections. I have an Afrikaner section upstairs. I've got a Pyrenees section upstairs. So there's an art history section to it. I'm busy setting up a legal deposits kind of scenario at the Mafeking campus that will obviously be in Setswana. So you need to be willing to take that dance and to move around in all of that history that needs to be preserved. Within the special collections environment, there's two main terms. The one is conservation and the other one is preservation. Preservation, by and large, basically refers to preventing damage to things. Your big factors are lights, humidity, and temperature. Lights physically damages items. Keep that in mind. And specifically for people that aren't experts, the fluorescent lights are probably one of the worst things, not just for your collections, but actually for your staff. Lights in preservation collections needs to be kept off. Humidity, please, there isn't a humidity range that we want. The one thing that makes mold grow within collections is fluctuations in humidity. The bottom line is things needs to be stable. It needs to be at one point and it mustn't fluctuate. And the same with temperature. One of the adages that I came across in a presentation the other day is that for every 1 degree your temperature is above 21 degrees, you cut your collection's lifespan by 10 years. I keep the temperature in my collections at roughly about 17 degrees. And then there's things like fire protection. We will all be very well aware of the whole scenario with the Jagger Library and the fire at UCT a couple of years ago. And I was still in the Cape at that stage, and it was a horrific event to actually live through. I didn't work there, but I certainly know the librarians there very well, and I think it shook everybody. But apart from that, we had a fire in 1949 at the NWU. The library at the NWU burned down in 1949. The whole gas fire protection scenario at the moment is a big topic in the industry, specifically because of the UCT fire. And we are certainly looking at implementing something like that at the NWU. But together with special collections, you can't do special collections without doing archiving. And there's a huge amount of things that needs to be kept in mind with archiving. Asset-free paper. You have nowadays, we get really wonderful polyester pockets that we can, that we actually keep our sensitive documents in. In fact, I had a couple of documents that I wanted to show you. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got handwritten documents that was handwritten by Mahatma Gandhi in my collection. That it's just incredibly exciting. But and then we have digitization. Digitization is something that we use as a preservation tool, because once you've digitized things, then obviously people don't need to handle the originals, although it doesn't preclude that in all cases. But digitization also becomes an online document delivery tool. Digitization and preservation, the electronic information dissemination. Keep in mind, I'm going to drop a bombshell on everybody here and at the start of talking about digitization for preservation. Digitization is an electronic information dissemination tool. And we cannot archive digitally. It cannot be done. And I'll explain why in a moment. A couple of things that we need to know about digitization specifically is there are ISO standards that controls digitization. If you are going to digitize within your institution, go and get hold of those ISO standards. If you don't know where to get them, find a special collections librarian or call me. My contact details is, and I will point you in the right direction. But it is critical to get to those standards. They exist for a reason. And two of those standards that are based within the equipment that we use. For example, this wonderful, I always say it's my toys, my favorite toys. I've got one of those somewhere in my future. That machine there, ladies and gentlemen, costs about 1.2 million. I'm drooling. But we have, your digitization is in essence a photographic method. And it works with cameras, and cameras work with light. Remember what I said, you need to understand physics and the way that light moves. And then you will also understand why digitization happens behind black curtains, because you don't want other light sources to impact the quality of your images. With digitization, there are two standards, Metamorphose and Fudgy. Metamorphose is a quality standard that's built into your scanners if you buy your scanners from the European theater. And Fudgy is what the digitization standard that is built into your scanners if you buy your scanners from the American side. So keep in mind that if you buy a scanner, it needs to adhere to ideally the top level of one of those standards. And don't buy it if it doesn't, because it impacts the actual quality of your images in the end of the day. And the reason I say that we cannot archive digitally at the moment is that digital images, the image that you see at the bottom of the screen, the top right left-hand image is the original image. Once you've opened that image up to as little as 15 times, you've opened it and you've closed it 15 times, you have color changes that starts happening. If any of you guys that are familiar with Google Books, Google went a couple of years ago, had a very ambitious project where they said they were going to digitize absolutely everything. Now today, if you open a lot of those Google Books images, it's very hard to read. It looks as though somebody had done a bad scan in the first place. And it's not somebody that's done a bad scan. that image has been opened and closed too many times. And the way that JPEG works, now JPEG is the file format that we use to distribute images with, but JPEG is a compression format. Every time JPEG closes a file, it throws away bits and pieces that it considers to be unnecessary. And in that process, just think about it. If you throw away bits and pieces 15 times when you open that file, by the time you've thrown away 15 lots of bits and pieces, JPEG considered useless, you have image deterioration. And first your colors go, eventually you can't read it anymore, and eventually you just have nothing. So you need to keep that in mind, and that's why I say that we cannot archive in digital format. There's a much longer conversation that we can have about it, but one of the things that I want you to keep in mind is that I did a library and information science degree. I've worked at Johannesburg Public Library. I've worked at a multinational corporate company that does auditing and business management. I got involved in IT. I was very, very deeply involved in digital preservation and digitization, and all of that with one library and information science degree. So keep in mind where you can go with all of this. I quickly want to talk about something called the Research Librarianships. Research Librarians is one of those job descriptions that's fairly new on the field. And what sort of makes a research librarian? If you want to become a research librarian out there, what skills do you need to acquire to make somebody like my boss, Erica, look at you for a position as a research librarian? And in essence, what sets research librarians aside is this: they work with postgraduate people. They typically work with people that are doing master's degrees and PhDs, and it's the tools that they actually need to use. Things like Atlas, that is a data management tool, and it's a data management tool specifically for humanities. It's not a quantitative, it's not statistics or number based like you find in the sciences very often. This is it's specifically developed for humanities. And there's also tools like EndNote and ORCID ID that you need to register for. And those things are all critical because by the time you're at a PhD level, you are going to start publishing information of your own and your own research. And that also brings us to the H index, that the whole essence in the academic environment of publish and perish. And keep that in mind, because citation impact, I mean, if you write an article, you want people to actually quote you, because that's what makes you famous in the end of the day. And digital scholarship and open scholarship are big sort of catchphrases within research librarianship, and how to use IT to enhance teaching. And obviously referencing. I have colleagues that do referencing for PhD students as a part-time environment. For any of you guys that have wondered how you make extra money if you're working in the library field, I have a colleague that works at 300 Rand an hour doing referencing for PhD scholars. So keep that in mind. It's a fascinating industry. Johannesburg Public Library, I've got a very, very special place in my heart for the Johannesburg Public Library because it was such an incredible place to work. But I also want you to wake up and smell the coffee. If there's anybody out there that can make a difference, that in social upliftment of people, it is our colleagues within the public library system out there. And keep that in mind, because they're the ones that are where the rubber hits the tar. And one of the major things that will change people's social strata, that will make it possible people to move through the social strata is reading culture. And one of the things that I really wanted, that really pains me to a certain extent, is we had a meeting and a couple of years ago, and in this specific meeting, there was about 64 librarians, and a good number of those people, probably a third of them, were librarians within the public library environment. And as sort of an icebreaker and to get people to know each other, I said, well, okay, fine, let's run around the table and just tell people what you're busy reading at the moment. And I was absolutely shocked to realize that there were 2 people at the table of 64 people that were active readers. Now, when I say reading culture, people out there, I really honestly want to implore you. You cannot do your job within the public library environment if you're not a reader. How do you do reader guidance without reading? And you need to read widely, not just what you like. If you like Dion Meyer's latest detective novel, you need to read the teenage Harry Potters and the Hunger Games, and you need to read the fantasy genres. You need to read the science fiction. So you need to be willing to read across a very wide spectrum. And then there's information literacy. Keep in mind that for a lot of people out there in our society, the public library is the only place that have access to the technology. How many of you guys could apply for a job without a computer today? I mean, it's just no longer possible. And if you are resident in an informal settlement, your only access to a computer that you can actually type up a CV, that you can email a CV to actually get a job is your public library. And that needs to make us look at public libraries in a completely different way. Corporate librarianship, a couple of things. Obviously, I've been in that environment. It was probably one of the things that I've learned while I was at Pricewaterhouse that changed my life and that I still do today. But a couple of interesting things. At Adcock Ingram, pharmaceutical company. Sorry, I'm talking too much and I need water. At Adcock Ingram, they headhunt the latest and the greatest and the smartest people within the pharmaceutical world. But those pharmacists, the research pharmacists at Adcock Ingram, their merit increases, whether you got more money based on you doing a good job at Adcock Ingram, your merit increase was absolutely integrally tied with how many times you used the library. Think about that. Let that sink in. A couple of interesting statistics about that is that for a chemical engineer to stay up to date with just this area of focus, just these little tiny little bit of chemical engineering, he would have to spend 5,000 hours a year reading. Okay, your average man year is 1,200 hours, which means it's not possible to stay up to date with everything. And that is specifically why Adcock Ingram tied these scientists' merit increases to their library use, because they headhunted these people for their special skills. But if they don't stay up to date with what's happening in their field, then they become useless within 6 months. It's that serious. Let's move on to law librarians. Law librarians are an interesting bunch. They are your top-notch. Law librarians often also have legal qualifications. So you often have lawyers working and being in charge of the library, because otherwise they can't do their jobs adequately. And they become integral people within that environment. And PricewaterhouseCoopers, it was a fascinating company to work for. I've got a very good friend and that is something you need to keep in mind, is that information has become so essential for people within the business world, that the information librarian at Pricewaterhouse was actually a director within the firm. Keep that in mind. So you're in a firm where you're not part of the core business, but you can actually become a director because the service that you render is that critical to the company's survival. Faculty librarians, these critters are, ladies and gentlemen, these are some of my favorite colleagues. The lady in the top right-hand corner is my boss, Erica, and the other ladies and gentlemen are my other faculty librarians at the NWU. And these people are subject experts. They are the people that actually liaise with the faculty on the one side and the students on the other side. And they're fascinating people. You should have the opportunity to come and have tea with us one afternoon. Fascinating people. We used to joke and say that librarians are they're social bores because at a party, they know everything. You know something of everything, just enough to be dangerous, but you know everything. Faculty librarians specifically also are intimately involved in collection development. Collection development in this case also includes databases that they will use, online databases and electronic databases. They do a lot of training and they write a lot of training materials, as we call them at the NWU LibGuides, and they are the human interface. One of the things that came out of the COVID pandemic is just that the students were saying that, they feel isolated and they feel alone. And I've suggested that we actually start developing a holographic technology so that when you chat to a librarian, one of the pretty faces will pop up in front of your desk and you can have a conversation of holograph of your faculty librarian. And hopefully our students will feel a little bit less lonely. National libraries, and please keep in mind, I'm highlighting, I've taken one aspect very often of a very complex institutions, but just something that I wanted to highlight, and it was my prerogative because I got to do this. National libraries as legal deposit centers. National libraries really truly are the custodians of history. I spent a good couple of years working at that library, the National Library in Cape Town, that's right next to Parliament. And one of the great things was we never had load shedding there because we were right next to Parliament. And we had this beautiful old Campagna gardens that you could go and stroll in with all the little squirrels that live there, that once in a while found the little teeth into our collections. Legal deposits. Okay, sorry, we've just got somebody that's visiting the office. Okay, legal deposit basically means that for every item that is published in South Africa, there has to be 5 copies delivered to legal deposit centers across the country. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a critical thing to know. Because in the end of the day, if you can't find an item at your public library, the one place you will always find it is your legal deposit center, and that's the National Library. So keep that in mind when you're doing information work. The National Library is also the place where if you are going to publish a new book, they will supply the ISBN numbers to that. They're also involved in name authority control, NACO headings. I know Stellenbosch University today has a course in NACO. Name authority control is really makes life so much easier for people in cataloging environments. For example, if you have 5 people called John Smith, if name authority has been done for that John Smith, you will be able to identify that there's a John Smith that was born in Bethlehem, there's a John Smith that was born in Johannesburg, Durban, Kroonstad, Kimberley, etc., and so forth. And that's what name authority control does. It actually builds that background information into the actual name of the author, that eventually makes it so much easier to do the cataloging. Cataloging, or metadata as it is called today, is one of the things that one of my areas of expertise, and specifically in my case, cataloging for special collections. And I think you would struggle to do proper special collections if you don't understand metadata. In fact, I've always said that nobody should ever be appointed in a management position in any library if they haven't done at least 3 years service in a cataloging office. Now, that's a controversial statement, so don't crucify me somewhere, but it is the foundation of everything we do. And my prediction is that the cataloging departments within our institutions are going to become more and more important in the next 10 years because of the way that we have become dependent on IT and on databases and on database structures. Cataloging and indexing, when I was at the Rand Afrikaans University, that is today called UJ, they did a survey to discover which were the 5 most difficult subjects taught at the institution. Cataloging and indexing was one of the 5 most difficult subjects taught at the university, right up there with theoretical physics and theoretical mathematics. Think about that, ladies. At that stage, the study basically said that for people in the information science industry, it would literally, it was roughly about 2% of people. You typically have your smartest people ending up in your cataloging departments, or you should. But they're interesting critters because they very often are more introverted. They're not people that's going to like working with the general public, but they need to be very detail orientated, but they also need to be incredibly creative because of the whole cataloging process and the problem solving requirement of it. Cataloging, I have always said, is very closely linked to civil engineering. Civil engineering is guided by a whole string of different sets of laws. You need to adhere to physical strengths of certain items. You need to know the hydrology of the geology of the area so that your road doesn't get washed away. And there's a whole string of other things that goes with that. Now, cataloging is the same way. You need to adhere to the RDA rules. You need to adhere to Mark 21. You need to adhere to the thesaurus. And all of those things needs to come together into one item that is actually supposed to be a key to the information that we keep in our databases. It is a fascinating field, and I think it's a field that impacts all of our lives, whether we're aware of it or not. One of my big things is, I said earlier, I spent 7 years in the IT world. While I was in the IT world, I became involved with something called rational rows, or object-oriented modeling and design. And I was incredibly, incredibly excited when I realized that RDA is based on something called Ferber, that FRBR and Ferber is an object-oriented modeling and design tool. Now, the reason I was very excited about that is this object-oriented modeling and design is a whole new way of looking at databases. But it's a whole new way of looking at databases that will help us to actually get to the 4th Industrial Revolution with our databases. And my prediction is that over the next 10 years, our cataloging departments are going to become much, much larger, because the people that are going to build these incredible databases are the people that's sitting in your cataloging offices. It also means that the skill sets that's required for your people in the cataloging office is going to go through the roof, is going to become very important. So keep that in mind as well. It is a fascinating area to get involved in. You always know what's new, so keep that in mind. I love being there. LIS, or Library Information, making sure that the information gets into the right hands. I mean, all of us, we all do what we do because we have a passion for sharing information. when I go to a new place, one of the first things I'll do is I'll find a librarian in that town that I can call, because librarians are natural sharers. They don't keep things close to their chest. They want to tell everybody where everything is, what the statistics are. They're fascinating critters. But your library information services are your front office people and the first port of call for our users. And our users are the reason for our existence. Collection experts, when I started at the NWU, I had Martin that took me for a walk through all the interesting critters, all the interesting places that very often a lot of my colleagues might not even know exists. And that was fascinating. If I want to know where something is and where to find it, those people in the front office they're the people that retrieve things for our users and for staff very often. Collection preservation. One of the things that I was really, really encouraged about is this when I arrived at the PICA is that the collections are clean. Martin's doing a brilliant job on this side. He really is. His staff are hard workers. Nobody's sitting in back rooms watching 7-line reruns or anything like that, not at the NWU. Here we work and the collections are clean and they're well looked after. And statistics. People don't necessarily always think about it, but your people that do the shelving of the books, those items that are collected on tables need to be scanned because that becomes part of your statistics, because the item wouldn't be lying on a table if somebody hasn't used it. And it's important statistics to give you an idea of what on your shelves are active and being used and what not. And then last but not least, this is the human interface for, other than the faculty librarians, this is the other human interface for our users that we exist for. Then we have electronic resource librarians. I have wonderful colleagues. That's why I say, if you're looking for a job, come to the NWU. The lady that came and helped us to get past our technical difficulties just now, Karine is our electronic resource librarian, and she works in hyperspace. Very often, electronic resource librarians, amongst other things, does the negotiating of contracts with international suppliers, evaluating of these electronic resources, and very often on an annual basis. They often also control the statistics on systems, like Corinne does, and they do a lot of training. So there's something else that you can think about as a career option. And then last but not least, mentorship. One of the things that, you know what, I've got 32 years experience. One of the things that I want to tell to the younger crowd out there is that remember what I said about the Johannesburg Public Library being a molding influence on my entire career. I have through my career, and don't wait for people to assign a mentor to you. Identify somebody within your organization that you look up to, whose skills you admire, and form relationships with those people. Find your own mentors, somebody that will add to your career, somebody that will help. I'm 32 years old, and one of the things that I really, honestly, truly, really love about being at the NWU is that Dr. Moya, our chief director, last year when I started here, he invited me to the strategic planning meetings, and I was very, very honored, and I'm still incredibly grateful for that. And that level of insight from chief management in a library, my boss and Louise Foss, Erica Root and Louise Foss, that are people that are such an value added element in my life. Even with 32 years of experience, there are still people you can learn from. So keep that in mind and identify those people, because your career will benefit from that immensely. It really will. And the last word from me is CV building. Guys, think about this. When you send in your curriculum vitae to a company, recognizability is a big factor as to whether people are going to be wowed or not wowed. Is it just another name that they're going to read, or they're going to say, oh, she's worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers. Oh, and she's been at the Northwest University. Think about those things. Identify certain companies that you want to work for, and then target them. You headhunt the companies instead of the companies headhunting you. And think about it. If you're a young up-and-coming librarian in a specific field, do you want to work for some outlying university in the middle of Timbuktu? Or do you want to work for somebody like NWU? It obviously have a complete different weight on your curriculum vitae. But I am going to sign off with that. And I certainly hope that, that everybody's enjoyed that. You have my contact details. You're welcome to contact me. If the email communications becomes too hectic, I will let people know. But thank you very much. It's been an honor to be here.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Adri, for that information. So in the interest of time, we'll not take questions now. We'll take questions after Annie has presented. Annie, are you ready? Is Annie ready? I don't see any on my screen. Zandile, I think that's your name, Annie. Okay. Chairperson, is it possible for you to check any on the hindsight?
Yes, Zandile. I think she's still.
Colleagues, I'm on there. Do you see my screen?
Yes. You can start sharing now. Mm-hmm.
Do you see my screen now?
Yes. As you are busy putting your screen, ladies and gentlemen, the person who's going to present now is Eninyati. Eninyati has been with the LIASA for a very long time. She was once the chairperson of this particular branch, once a librarian of the year. Eni has been supportive to every leadership that we have seen in LIASA in the province, which is what is very important, ladies and gentlemen. It is not always advisable to be the good leader when you are at the front. It's always also advisable to be the good and the best leader when you are leading from behind. Those are the words that were said by a mighty giant of who has touched this soil sometimes in our life. As I'm talking, so I'm expecting to see you putting the slideshow so that you can start. So I'm trying to say to you, ladies and gentlemen, not all the time we should be at the front, but we should be always around the people who are doing certain things that are correct, and we support them. We don't need to be in position to be able to make impact in the lives of other people. As you are celebrating librarians, as you are celebrating the face of librarianship, Annie, I give the platform over to you. You can share your experience as a librarian with us. Thank you very much, Annie.
Good morning, colleagues. And thank you for... And thank you. Do you see my screen?
Yes, your screen is very visible on my side.
Okay, colleagues, after listening to the presentation by Adri, she said a mouthful. So I'm going to cut some of my presentation and I'm going to start presenting from slide 3 in the interest of time. But since the session is being recorded, you can be able to go back and look at my whole presentation, because I believe that Adri has said a mouthful and has inspired especially new and upcoming librarians. I would like to share my experience as a librarian. I've been in the field for 25 years, 18 of which being as a librarian. And then, because I'm going to present that librarians in the 21st century need library associations to keep abreast with new developments in the profession. So I'm going to share my experience after joining LIASA in 2002 until now. I have the following achievement. In 2004, after joining LIASA in 2002 and gaining experience and networking with different colleagues from the country and abroad, I was nominated as Best Performing Employee in the municipality in the Libraries Division. In 2009, I was nominated as Northwest Librarian of the Year. And in 2010, I attended the Carnegie Leadership Academy that was rendered by LIASA in collaboration with University of Pretoria. This was a very rigorous process that prepared us as leaders in the library field. So I'm grateful to have been a LIASA member to attend this. And then in 2011, through LIASA also, I attended the Carnegie Library Leadership Trainer program. That program also gave me a lot of impact towards my career as a librarian. Therefore, I'm still emphasizing the fact that for the 21st librarians to keep abreast and to be relevant in their different fields, they need library associations. And then the journey continued. After being motivated by joining LIASA in 2002, I became the Northwest Library Systems Tax Team from 2006 until 2007. Then I became the Secretary for Bujanala District Libraries Forum since September 2007 2009. From November 2009 until May 2011. Again, in 2011, I was member of the Northwest Book Selection Committee from November 2009 until May 2011. I believe that without LIASA as my association of choice, this would not have been possible for me. The journey continues. In 2009, I became the Northwest Library Conditional Grant Evaluation Committee from 2009 until 2011. Then in 2010, I became the Deputy Chair of LIASA Northwest Branch until 2012, and then took the reins from 2012 until 2014. Then in 2014 until 2016, I was the chairperson of LIASA Northwest Branch. 2017 to 2018, I was the public relations officer of LIASA Northwest Branch. And then in 2018 until 2020, I became the LIASA Northwest Public and Community Libraries Interest Group. And then also through LIASA for networking and sharing of information, I participated in the Wikipedia in African Libraries training facilitated by African Library and Information Associations and Institutions AFLIA in 2021. Colleagues, believe me when I say librarians in the 21st century need their library associations. I'm grateful to have achieved all this because of joining my association of choice being LIASA. I attended almost all the conferences of LIASA, as well as both the two IFLA events that were hosted by our country in 2007 and 2015. And this was made possible also by my association of choice, because I applied for grants to attend the conferences So I would like to urge, especially new upcoming librarians, to join LIASA as the association of choice so that you can enhance your profession. And then why join the association? We should join the association because it offers opportunities for the professional development and education of librarians, library staff, as well as promotion of continuous lifelong learning. Again, library associations provide professional space for librarians to meet and share experiences and learn from each other. I'm now talking about LIASA, my association of choice, as I'm the champion for the association. The Library and Information Association of South Africa is the SAGA recognized professional body for the library information and related sectors. It is a non-profit organization uniting and representing all institutions, people working in libraries and information services in South Africa. And we have a vision as LIASA, which is Dynamic Association of Excellence for Library and Information Services Sector. The mission, the association that connects the LII sector and promotes the development of South Africa through access to information. I urge all librarians who are not LIASA members yet to please visit the website for LIASA to find all this information that I'm reading now and more. And then as LIASA, we have core values. We are providing leadership excellence to this profession nationally and internationally. We are engaging in the highest ethical practice. We are ensuring professional conduct, acknowledging and respecting the diversity and individuality of all people. We are promoting freedom of access to information as enshrined in the Constitution of South Africa. And then we are leading the development and growth of the LIS profession through excellence. LIASA also is championing the culture of reading and lifelong learning to build an informed nation. And lastly, we as LIASA, we are committing to the development and growth of South Africa through excellence in leadership. For more information, please visit the following website, www.liasa.org.za. Thank you, Kia leboga.
Thank you very much, Annie, for this wonderful information. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the presentation that we had for today. Now, as Annie, will you kindly stop sharing the screen? Now, as I indicated before Annie presented, I said we will entertain questions immediately after she has spoken. So now, let me quickly remind the colleagues. Let me quickly remind the colleagues about this particular day, the South African Librarians Day. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, as librarians, we are very modest. We are apologetic about the service that we are providing, whether it's at the school, whether it's at the public, whether it's at the academic or special libraries. So we are apologetic, we are apologizing for being what we are. So now the purpose of this particular day, when the thinkers around LIASA came about with this particular day, they wanted to remind ourselves that we need to have one day or 1 month in the year where we will have an official breaking right as librarians. So now this is all about breaking rights. So that is why we wanted our colleagues to share their experience with us, because now that is where we want to show that people must brag about the work that they are doing. Why we are talking about these changing phases now? What we are simply saying, we want to say, who are we in this particular universe? what are we doing in this world of information? Where do we operate in this world of information? Why are we operating, and when do we operate in this particular world of information? Now, all these questions, when we answer them, we become the glue of knowledge that everybody, whether it's a professor, whether it's a teacher, whether it's an engineer, whatever profession that you have, now we hold all those people, we hold their ability to access their qualification, their expertise. We are a glue that link them with their expertise or with their talent. So now we need not to be afraid to brag about that particular thing. So now, as I was listening to the speakers, I was reminded about this particular book. I'm not sure whether I'll see. Yes, I was reminded about this particular book. This is the mindset of a millionaire. I'm quoting this as you are preparing your questions, colleagues. And Annie and Adri will be writing the questions so that they can respond. So now I remember this particular quotation. It is better to be lion for a day than a sheep of all your life. Librarians, the South African Librarian Day came as a result that our leaders noticed that we are doing excellent work across the country, but we do not talk about that work. We do not report about that work. So now this platform, I hope in next year, we are going to have the whole day whereby we'll be having more than 2 speakers who will be sharing their experience of being a librarian and how this can inspire the upcoming librarian. So now remember this quotation, it is better to be a lion for a day than be a sheep all your life. So now librarians, please share your expertise. Now, as I'm looking, I'll stop sharing here and I'll go to the screen. I'm looking for hands that will be. Let me make sure I've stopped sharing now. Martin, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. So now I'm looking for hands, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Adri, we've got Annie, they shared their experience. So now next year, we should see you sharing your expertise around your profession. So do I see hands here? Oh, I don't see hands. So now, through you, Chairperson, let me address the next item in our agenda. So before I address the last item in the agenda, I was touched by the reminder that Adri made regarding librarians as entrepreneurs, librarianship and entrepreneurship. Those are fascinating concepts that we always shy away from them as librarians. So now I'm happy you raised that. And I'm also happy that you raised the issue of the issue of the mentorship. Any can bear testimony because Liasa made sure that during their term, they were provided with leaders who nurtured them, leaders who mentored them. That's why there were those scholarships that they had to go. Some of them went into Africa, some of them went into overseas as part of mentorship, because you cannot build your courage and strength without the support of others. So now I'm happy that we are all on the same track as librarians. Chairperson, according to the program, we are supposed to have Mr. Ernest Bampu. So he's not on the line. So I've requested behind the scene, I've requested Mr. Nyembeleza to do a vote of thanks. Tembile Nyembeleza, will you take this honor to give us the vote of thanks?
All right. Before I proceed, I just want to know if I'm audible enough.
Yes, you are, my brother.
Okay. Good morning, everyone who is present here. It is my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, Jonathan Nyebeleza, on behalf of Liasa Northwest and the entire team, the program director, Mr. Teboho Morajani, chairperson, Mr. Martin Okwani, Mr. Ugo Okoli, and on my own behalf, extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all speakers for gracing our important work and sharing with us your findings and opinions today. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Ms. Adri Jansen for sharing her expertise, enthusiasm, and experience with regards to special collection. Furthermore, we are grateful to Ose Eninyati for demonstrating her passion to librarianship and showing us the importance of being a member of Liasa and attending workshops and webinars to keep abreast of new developments in our profession. I take this opportunity to extend my sincere thanks to all the participants who took their time to be with us this morning. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to Kagiso Ledwaba from Liasa National for the perfect logistic support and guidance he has extended to all of us at this meeting. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, once again, I want to state that we are all most grateful to all speakers on this virtual stage. We thank you for being with us this morning. It has been a great pleasure. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Chairperson, the Executive Committee, members of Rep Council, Kagiso, and the office, thank you very much for the support that you have given to us as members of Liasa. We really appreciate your services. Keep it up. We are really what we are because of you at the office. So let's build this Liasa together. Let's build our profession together. And I hope one day we'll address the banning of libraries in our communities as Liasa in the Northwest, because we are the victim of that particular sickness in our society. So now, without any waste of time, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for participating in the profession of choice, Library and Information Association of South Africa, Liasa. And I hope you are all going to save those little cents and pay for the conference from the 1st to the 7th of October 2022. Please, let's go and stamp on the head of COVID and say, COVID, you'll never destroy this profession. COVID will never destroy us as a nation. So let's pay, ladies and gentlemen, let's fill that hall in Captain Park so that we can display and demonstrate to COVID that it will never win. We are the winners. Without any waste of time, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you very much, Chairperson, for giving me this opportunity to share this particular session. God bless you all. Goodbye. Thank you, Kagiso.
Bye-bye.